Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Evolving Women. Teresa Lysam, and I'm here with my amazing guest co-host, Sue Lehman. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Teresa. How are you?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So delighted to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Now, I want to start with this idea as young adults, we kind of believe that we have, our whole life is ahead of us, and we can plan. People help us decide what college we're going to or whatever, where we're going to live. And we kind of see it as a straight line. And we'll get to the end and everything will be pleasant and hunky dory. Well, we know that's not how it all plays out.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your life's path, if you would please, today.
Okay. I am one of six girls, and
Hmm.
since I'm the second oldest, I have an older sister who was pretty darn close to perfect. Never got into trouble, always got really good grades, took care of the family. And then there was me, kind of the rebel without a cause, although I was a light rebel, not like a big rebel. But when I was like 12, I had it all planned in my head. I was going to graduate high school. I was going to be, just barely 18. I was going to go right to college. I was going to get done in 4 years. I was going to get married, have a house, have a couple babies. It was going to be wonderful. And I did graduate from high school, yay me. And I did well in high school. Or in school in general, because, I was raised by parents who said, you will do well, and then
Hmm.
backed away and said, now figure it out. Um, but when I got to college age, they were like, oh, you see, you've got four other sisters coming up, and we can't afford to send you to college, so you're going to have to figure it out.
Wow.
So that started me on a path of a year between high school and college where I kind of took this gap year and I
Hmm.
worked and I kind of kicked around and played a little bit and tried to decide what it was that I wanted to be when I grew up. So the next year I started college, and the whole time I'm in college, I went to a local college in my town. I worked full time because I was like, well, if I've got to pay for this and I've got to pay for a
Hmm.
car and car insurance, the whole nine
Yeah.
yards, then I have to fund this. So it took me 5 years to get through college. So much for that 4 year plan I had. And I actually did meet the man who became my husband, and we got married, I'd say like a year or so after I got out of college. But, and then I did get a full-time job and things were rosy for a while. We bought a house and we had our first child. But because of medical complications, he ended up passing like he was only
Mm.
3 weeks old.
Um,
So, we're like, okay, well, we'll try again. And it was probably about 5 years later that we had our son. And as my niece at the time, when she was 5 years old when our first son Adam passed, and she asked me if we were going to have another baby, and I said, well, we'd like to. And she said, well, next time you're going to have to keep that one alive. And I'm like, the wisdom of a 5 year old,
oh,
I was like, I'll work on that.
wow. Harsh, but wise.
She spoke the truth. So this next one, yeah, he made it. Um,
Yay.
but he was just finishing up his freshman year of high school when his father and I broke up. So, divorce was never in the game plan. I was a very good, loyal person. We had had our moments where we'd fight over money and, all the fun kind of stuff. But we ended up breaking up. And then I found myself as a single parent going, okay, now what? You
Mhm.
know, wasn't in the plan.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my parents telling me, by the way, you have to pay for all this stuff when I was young, taught me really well how to handle money. So we were fine. I took over the house and we were just fine. And I eventually started dating again. I was like, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to meet the next man who's going to be my husband. And I did get engaged, but that lasted about a year. And then he decided he didn't want to be married to someone who wanted to be married.
Mm.
So again, I found myself kind of cast adrift. And in that time frame, like when my second son was a year old, he was born like between my second to last year in my last year of law school. So I couldn't have timed it more perfectly. He was literally born right after finals before I had to start the next semester. And I had a good job and everything. And a couple years ago, I was like, now what? Now what do I do? And I found myself in a group coaching program because at that point, I had a couple of relationships that didn't pan out. And I was like, okay, problem must be here as opposed to them, right?
Mm,
So that ended up being a really great thing. And I was kind of like, all right, so what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because I knew I had wanted to retire in 2024. I had that all planned. And this was early 2023. And my undergraduate degree happens to be in accounting, and my second, well, the next sister in line from me, we were about 11 months apart. So for like 12 days every year, we are the same age. Yeah. And by the way, when we were little, we couldn't figure out if her birthday was before mine, how was it that I was older? Because at that point, apparently math didn't click for us. But anyway. She owns her own business out there. And for years, I go to California where she lives in January because it sucks in Ohio. Let's be
hmm
honest. I mean, we used
I
to live here.
totally get that.
Yeah. And I would help her every year with her year-end stuff because I was usually going out, like I said, January. And finally, I was like, you know what? We could do this. We have the internet. I mean, this is post-COVID when we were all shown how you could work from home and be
Yes.
productive.
hmm
So I decided to become a virtual assistant at that point and help her. And this was going to be my retirement business.
Okay.
I I once upon a time tried to build a business as a professional organizer, but what kind of got in my way was A, me, because I didn't believe in me, but
hmm
B, the Great Recession. Like I decided to start it right about then, which
No.
was not the best idea, but if I had a crystal ball, maybe I would have known. So I started my business and I did retire from my day job.
Yay.
Yay! And I've been doing, now I would consider myself more as an executive assistant because I have lots of really techie skills now that I didn't have when I first started out. But, I mean, it does seem like it's a huge jump from you were an attorney. Why are you an executive assistant now? Why aren't you
Mhm.
being still an attorney?
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, that circuitous route that I take in my life where I was like, you know what? I mean, I'm a really good second banana, being the second oldest. I'm really good with somebody else being in charge, and I'm like your supporting crew. So to me, it makes perfect sense. And I really love what I do, and it's been so much more fulfilling for me than being an attorney ever was. I mean, the gig was
Mm.
good when I had it, but I was ready to be done with that. So, in my later 50s is when I decided, oh, I'm going to start a business, which again seems counterintuitive to most people.
Yeah.
Why are you
Yep.
starting it so late in life?
hmm
But it was kind of the point where I figured out that I didn't care what anybody else thought. I mean, menopause is great for that, isn't it? We don't care anymore. It's like, go do this. And if we mess it up, oh, well, say la
Yep.
vie, do something else. So it's been very, very rewarding and I love what I do and I get to meet really cool people. So,
Wow, I love that. And we have these um, thoughts, these expectations, these judgments, excuse me, placed on us. So when people see you in the attorney job, the attorney role, they have trouble understanding, like, well, why would you want to give that up? High paying, blah, blah, blah. We have this stereotype that we immediately label somebody like that with. But you said it was not fulfilling to you.
mhm.
So, and I'm sure people gave you a hard time about transitioning out of that
Yes.
into your own business as a virtual assistant, which they may have seen as a lesser, not as, prestigious of a job.
Right. And I actually think in a lot of ways, I think in a lot of ways, people give too much credit to attorneys. I've known some really great attorneys and I've known some really lousy attorneys. And I mean, there's examples of both all over the place. Just
Oh
get on the
yeah.
internet.
Yeah.
But I mean, one thing I noticed throughout the 30 odd years I worked in an office environment was that most of the time the men had no problem asking for help and they had a secretary assigned to
Mm.
them and someone who would like handle all of their paperwork and all of the computer stuff. And they didn't bother to learn the computer stuff as well. This was my experience in my job.
Mm-hmm.
And the women, like me, we knew the ins and outs of the computer system. We could do all our own stuff, and we did all our own stuff. And it was very rare that we asked anybody for help. And it was kind of like we wore that as a badge of honor. And I don't know why it became a badge of honor, but I find, and myself included in this, you know, we we don't like to ask for help. We think
Yes.
it's a sign of
Yeah.
weakness.
Yes.
We're all together too happy to help somebody else, but to ask for
Yes.
help ourselves,
I know that's rough for women. Again, in our society here in the States, I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but we do struggle with that. And you're right. Why do we think it's a badge of honor that we can birth the babies and bring home the bacon all at the same time?
right? I mean, on the one hand, I mean, I'm grateful that I'm Gen X in the house, because I mean, we had so many more opportunities of being able to do different things with our lives. My parents are silent generation. So they
Mm.
were older when they had us. Like they were 35 when my oldest sister was born and 44 when my youngest sister was born. So my mom was big on, I want you guys to be able to go do what I didn't get to do because
Mm.
it wasn't a thing when I
Yeah.
came of age.
Yeah.
And my dad, I think the thing that saved me, because, truly my dad, if he, if he would have had one boy, my life would have been completely different because that boy would have been the exalted child and we would have had gender roles. We just would have
Mm-hmm.
because I
Yeah.
saw it in all my friends who had brothers. And because I have no brothers, and my dad was like, well, I need a set of hands. Somebody's got to help me. So I learned
Yes.
to
Yes.
operate tools and, climb up and down ladders and do all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff. So
Yeah. Me and my dad did the same thing. Like I learned my tool working skills from him. We worked together on projects many times, and I absolutely cherish those memories.
absolutely.
And I feel like I'm more capable and more independent than somebody who did not have that opportunity to learn those types of skills.
I would agree wholeheartedly. So
And you're right. I love that if you had had a brother, your life would have been different.
nothing against the brother,
Right, right.
but
But like you said, the gender thing.
oh, 110%. I mean,
Hmm.
it I have a friend, love her dearly, but she had a brother, and when I first met her in college, two completely different rules. Like he went out with his buddies and there was
Yeah.
no curfew and there were no rules and
Yes.
that kind of thing. Here we were, 19, 20 years old, and her parents like, you have to be home by midnight. I
Hmm.
was like,
Yeah.
well, if your parents say you have to be home by midnight, your butt's going to be home by midnight because I'm not going to be the
Hmm.
one who gets you into trouble. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that whole double standard thing.
mhm.
Um, which I don't know what the newer generations how they're dealing with that. I know gender has kind of been stretched out. So I don't
Yeah,
know if that's that prevalent anymore, but you're right, it was a thing. It really was a thing back then. And they didn't do it on purpose, I don't think. That was just what they knew,
yes,
picked up from their parents, and it just played out in the culture. Um, I love that you know that you're a second banana in your words. You're a support person
mhm,
and you relish that role of like uplifting somebody else. And
mhm.
you're not doing that because of somebody else's choice for you. Does that make sense? You're
It makes
doing it because you excel at that and you revel in that. It's you're doing that with intention and by choice, not because you are forced into taking that secondary role.
exactly,
In
exactly.
fact, you're leaning into it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, being the second oldest, I was in a weird position that a lot of people aren't, in which case, I was sometimes artificially an oldest child when my older sister wasn't around, but then I got to
Hmm.
be like a younger child when my older sister, I mean, even now you could see us fall into the roles when we're all together. It's
Oh, I'm
really funny.
sure.
Like I wait for her to tell us what we're doing. I'm like, okay.
Isn't that funny how it doesn't matter how old you are, when you're back with your family, you fall into those default roles or behaviors, no
Mhm.
matter how much personal work you do on yourself.
No, and I mean, sometimes it's great fun because sometimes I get to be the consummate little sister where I'm like poking at her and driving her crazy.
That is so funny. It happens with my when my parents were alive. It happened as many times as I didn't want it to happen. I would just step into that default
Mhm.
way of interacting with them, and then I'd yell at myself afterward, like, why did you do that? You're an adult now. You don't have to slip into that childhood mentality when you're around your parents. It's just
But it's just what you do. I think, as my mother, because both my parents are gone now, but as my mother got older and a little bit more infirm, she would tell me all the time, she's like, when did you become my mother? And I'm like, when did you start acting like a child?
right. The roles do flip at some point for everybody.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's interesting to see that play out. Um, yeah, and that's a big conversation in and of itself. But I
It
want to
is.
applaud you for learning the techie skills. Like I'm older than you, and I didn't grow up with computers and techie stuff, and I've learned it over the years because I wanted to and I needed to. And did you find it was hard for you to learn those skills, or did it come a lot, kind of easy for you?
Well, I will tell you this. When I was in high school, I was like a junior, I think. We got our very first computer class. And it truly was like a programming type class. And I avoided it like the plague. If I didn't have to take it, I wasn't going to take it. And then I got to college, and the very first computer class they made us take had to do with programming. And
Mm,
this basic program was supposed to do something that for no matter how hard I tried, I could not get it to do what it was supposed to do. And I even went and sought help from the computer lab geeks, and they
hmm.
couldn't make it do what it was supposed to do. And they're like, well, it looks like you have it right. And I'm like, but it's not doing it. They're like, yeah, we don't know. And I'm like, neither do I. So I was like, okay, I'm never, ever going into computer programming. This I know. But one of the things I did learn about me is that you put a program in front of me and tell me to use it, like use this application or whatever, and I will bother to dive in and learn the ins and outs of it because I want to
Mm,
know how it does what it does, kind of, and how I can make it do what I want it to do. And I'm not always
mm,
as successful as I would like to be in that, but it's to me, it's like a really big math problem, like this puzzle that you have to kind of figure out what the equation is and then you can solve it. Which, by the way, high school me would have been like, no, 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 we're not talking math analogies. We don't like math that much, and yet you're here. So I like doing that kind of thing. Like I've learned how to do landing pages, I've learned how to do email campaigns, and like more complicated stuff like the if-thens, like I recently wrote a quiz and I had to figure out how to do the if then. Like if they score this, I
yeah.
want this set of emails to go out to them versus if they score that, I want that set of emails to go out to them. So I had to figure all of that out. I'm like, okay, this is not as horrible as what it could be. And then I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that out loud.
Oh, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. But I just applaud and appreciate those of us who did not have technology and devices as they do now. They're born into this.
Truly. My
And it's
son is
like
Gen
you
Z,
I've
and
seen
yeah.
little teeny kids like on the device, like doing, and I'm like, I can't keep up. My eyes don't know what they're doing, but they just naturally fall into that. Whereas we had to learn it. I remember my husband wanted to get a computer for my kids when they were just, a thing. And like I fought him on it. Like, no, we don't need that thing. What's it do? I didn't understand the purpose of it. And now I totally get it. I totally appreciate it. And I spend a large part of my time on one. And
Mhm.
we all have one in our pocket.
Right.
So, but we've had to learn all of these things. It's not natural to us. So I just applaud all of us that have taken that opportunity to learn, because I know my dad, he didn't want anything to do with it, computers or anything like that. He
Mhm.
chose not to jump on that bandwagon. And so for those of us who have, good for us.
Right? Because I mean, I have my very first smartphone was an Apple phone, and I cannot tell you the number of times I would go to my Gen Z child and go, "How do I do this?"
Oh
And he
yeah.
only knew
Oh
because he had an
yeah.
iPod Touch, and the very first Apple phone I had was really simple. So he'd be like, "Give me your phone."
But I don't think they understand that we don't, it's not natural to us,
Mhm.
you know? Like when my husband got a new truck last year with the big screen that everybody seems to have now in their new cars, it didn't come with like a manual. Remember those manuals that they would come with? And it
Mhm.
came with nothing. And like he didn't know how to use the screen. And she was probably 10 at the time, 10 or 11. And he had to ask our granddaughter to figure it out for him. And she did.
Of
Darn
course,
it.
and a lot faster than we would have, right?
It's just, oh yeah, we can do this and you do this. And it's like, how does that even happen? But I so appreciate that younger generation that can figure things out. And I don't know if their brain works differently now than ours did or ours
Maybe.
does with this stuff. I don't know what it is, but
I don't know. I mean, my mother, at one point, she had asked me to send a letter to the White House for her. Now, she didn't want to mail it. She wanted me to send an email. She knew that much.
Okay.
And I said, okay, no problem. She goes, now, do I have to pay you for long distance charges to do it?
Yes,
And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, Mom, that's not how that works.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, my mother-in-law, same thing. She had a cell phone, but she would never use it because she didn't understand that you didn't have to pay long distance charges
Right.
because that's what we had, back in the day. So it's just an interesting world. It's been fun watching it all unfold from what we had, decades ago to what we have now. It's absolutely amazing. But I do want to ask, since you started your business, what, after 50, after age
Hmm.
50, is that what you said? Like,
Yes.
what kind of response did you get from family members, from your sisters, like, and even now, like, because a lot of people of that time frame, like, they're starting to think about winding down and retiring and blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Well, my older sister is still mystified as to why I stopped being an attorney.
Yeah.
My sister, who's the closest in age to me, supports me all the way because she owns her own business, so she completely understands it. The rest of my sisters, my second youngest sister lives with me. She's developmentally delayed, and she just knows I go and play on the computer. She doesn't completely understand it, but
Uh-huh.
she's going to cheer me on the whole way, which I love. Um, and the others, I mean, I don't know what they really think. Maybe they think I'm just playing around. But I mean, at this point, like I said, menopause. I don't care. I'm going
Does
to
it?
do what
Yeah.
I want to do, and if it makes me happy, I'm all for it.
Isn't that the gifts of menopause and maturing?
Mm.
And yeah, it's just like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I
I
mean, when I was still working, I could say things to my boss that nobody else could say. And everybody was
Mm.
just like, I cannot believe you get away with that. And I'm like, it's the gift of being over 50.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yes. I have to tell you this funny story. It just happened the other day for us. We were up at the beach and we were getting our stuff, taking it down to the beach from our vehicle, and I have to take a bunch of stuff to the beach. And there is this, I'm going to call him an old guy, sitting in his folding chair in a parking spot, just reading whatever he was doing, just like he was holding a parking spot for somebody. And I would tell my husband, like, he could not get away with that if he was a young guy. Like, people would give him a hard time, but because he was an old guy, everybody's going to let him get away with it.
That is true. That is true.
So, again, the gift of age and wisdom
Mhm.
and having a really long life experience.
Right.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I tell you. Well, if somebody wants to tell us a little bit more about what you offer people and how they can get a hold of you, please.
Okay. The kinds of things I offer, though, first of all, I personally focus on female entrepreneurs because usually the ones who need the help most, last ones to ask for it, as we discussed.
Yes, yes.
And I do all the kind of administrative techie things. So, like I said, landing pages, like website updates. I do email campaigns. I do research. I do reports. I
Mm.
do some social media posting. I do real light podcast, um, real light podcast editing. And I post things to various places and I do bookkeeping. And those are the kinds of things I like to do. And I'm not against learning something new if it would present itself. It just would kind of depend on what it is. Again, I am not going to build a website probably completely from scratch, and I am no way, shape, or form going to write a computer program. But I've embraced the techie stuff for sure.
Hmm.
And the name of my business is Keep It Simple with Sue. So it's the KISS principle.
I love
Little
that.
twist on that. And they can find me online at keepitsimplewithsue.com.
Love that.
I'm
And
also on
that's so
Facebook.
simple. So simple.
Yes, right. I mean, it makes sense, right? And
Makes
personally, by the
perfect
way,
sense.
one of the things I learned a long, long time ago, because my father never graduated from high school.
Mhm.
So, education wise, yeah, he wasn't up there. But
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is a wide range of what people have for knowledge. And I am
Hmm.
never going to say to someone, you're stupid because you can't do X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z,
Right.
because that is absolutely not true. They can do things I can't do.
Hmm.
My
I,
dad could fix anything. I
you
cannot
know,
fix
that was
anything.
my dad too.
Hmm.
He didn't finish high school neither. He enlisted instead. But he was the most resourceful person I knew at that point in time. And
Hmm.
you're right, he could figure it out. If he didn't have a part or a tool, he would take something else and figure out how to use that. And
Hmm.
even though, like you said, he wasn't book learned, let's say,
Yep.
he was an amazing person. And I think he thought poorly about himself because he didn't have that high
Hmm.
school, that college education. And so he didn't think of himself as, I'm going to say, worthy. That's maybe not, or not as good as somebody else, which
Right.
was sad because he was an amazing person.
Hmm.
But, he didn't think of himself as that.
Right. And, you know, my dad would hate computers. There's no doubt in my mind if he were here, and I don't think he ever would embrace a cell phone. But like I said, you give him a car and he could take it apart and put it back together. He could do
Yes.
math in his head. It was impressive. Like fractions, no
Yes,
problem.
yes. Yep.
So
Yep. So we all have our own superpowers, our own special gifts, and we need to embrace them and lean into them and not diminish them because we're comparing ourselves to somebody else.
agreed.
I mean, phew, I'm very good at that, I know, comparing myself. But thank you so much for letting us get a little sneak peek into your life. So
Thank you.
appreciate that. And I love that you are doing what you're doing for women entrepreneur. You're supporting women. You're helping them take some things off of their plate because we
Mhm.
know women have so many things. They're juggling so many things. And you're here
True.
to help them take some of those pieces away from them and delegate to you instead of trying to do it all. Birth the baby and bring home the bacon and do all
Exactly.
the techie stuff all at the same time
And cook at the same time, right?
and cook at the same time. And so thank you so much for doing what you're doing out in the world. And everybody who's listening, oh, I got to do my little sign here. Okay, this is my reminder to say this. So subscribe, share, comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what we talked about here today. And if you feel this conversation would be helpful to somebody else, please share this with them. That would help us get the message out and just show women that there's so many things they could do with their lives, irregardless of their age. It does not matter what age you're at. You can always start something new and try something. So thank you so much, Sue. Thank you for what you're doing out there in the world. And thank you to everybody who's listening in. And we will see you on the next episode of Evolving Women. Bye, everybody.